Hi there, YouTube. Today's video will thankfully have no singing in it. Amid the persistent messaging about how happy, moral, clean, and righteous Jehovah's Witnesses are, you'd think their lives would be pretty boring. I mean, not so much as a glimpse of a shoulder or a knee anywhere, certainly no cleavage. No affairs, no shenanigans, only the tamest, read unfunny, of jokes, and definitely not even a whiff of scandal, right? Wrong. Now, there are plenty of YouTube videos already out there about the larger and better known scandals among Watchtower leadership going all the way back to the beginning. You've heard them all if you've done any research whatsoever. Beth Sarum, rampant alcoholism at Bethel, Charles Taze Russell's womanizing child molestation and subsequent divorce, his Miracle Wheat scam, Rutherford's womanizing and apparent bigamy. Look up the Moyle trial. Wow. All their failed prophecies, purposeful misquotations of the published writings of others, unauthorized use of copyrighted images in their publications, Mexico versus Malawi, discrepancy on political neutrality, pretty heinous racism in their earlier written materials. Then there was the apostasy scandal that ousted Ray Franz, and Crisis of Conscience, that's a really good read. Oral sex prohibitions, even among married people. Disfellowshipping, shunning, child molestation, and the list goes on and on and on. But those are not actually what I'm here to talk to you about today. No, I'm here to talk to you about the congregation level scandal. Why? Because I started thinking about that in the time since I left the Witnesses. Sure, I've seen a few scandals in the world, yeah, but nothing even close to the number and type of scandals that I saw and heard about in my own congregations growing up. I think that it's a function of repression, and maybe also the fact that nefarious individuals can clearly see that witness congregations are absolutely packed with prime targets. Sometimes bad people come into the truth, in quotations, for the sole purpose of getting away with stuff. Other times, for whatever reason, people don't really think at all and they just do things on impulse because they don't know how to control themselves. Repression does that, particularly in sexual situations. And when you're rushed into marriage at a young age, forced to choose a mate from a very small, very shallow pool of options, I might actually call it a puddle of options, the situation becomes even more tenuous. Anyway, yes, scandalous situations do happen all the time in every community. My entirely anecdotal, non-scientific opinion is that there are more scandals per capita inside the Watchtower than outside. So here are just a few that I remember from my time as a Jehovah's Witness. We'll start at home, shall we? Of course, you already know about the scandal around my own molestation as a child, so I'm really not going to go there today, but there's that. And there was at least one known pedophile in our circuit, and he was there for quite some time. I'm talking decades, because he actually molested my mother when she was little. And when I was about 4 or 5, I remember Mom telling my sister and I that we had to go greet him at the assembly, but we were not to let him hug us, and we were not to sit on his lap. When we asked why, she said that he had this seizure thing and that he might hug us too hard and not be able to let go and just like squish us to death, which was terrifying. So we found out later as adults that he was actually a child molester. So yeah, our mother actually put it on us to protect ourselves from someone that she knew from firsthand experience was a pedophile. That's kind of scandalous in itself. Anyway, when I was really young in the early 1980s, I'm dating myself, during the height of the satanic panic that was happening in Christian circles everywhere, one family in our congregation claimed that their little girl had been demonized at school somehow and had actually moved the furniture in her bedroom in front of the door to lock them out and was shouting the signs of the zodiac and throwing things against the wall. So I always pictured this little blonde-haired girl screaming, Gemini, Taurus, Pisces, Cancer, and flinging her secondhand Chatty Cathy doll against the floral wallpaper. It's great. Then, of course, One of the biggest scandals was when my father, who was the presiding overseer, started having an affair with a sister that he was counseling and who also happened to be my mom's best friend at the time. She and her husband used to go to dinner with my parents all the time. They went on a trip together as well. And my mother used to say to us that she had to go on their honeymoon with them. Anyway, there were nasty divorces all around. And then my dad and my stepmother got married and lived happily for the next 17 years. But that was not by any stretch of the imagination an isolated case. During that whole scandal, there were others in similar situations in surrounding congregations. One was a couple whose son was an object of my sister's early teenage crush. Apparently, the wife had cheated on the husband, so his reaction was to show up at our place one night around dinner time. Ever the consummate hostess, of course, my mother invited him to stay for dinner because that's what you do. And, this man's children were around the same age as my sister, and they took piano lessons from the same sister in our congregation who taught us, so we all knew each other pretty well. Well, my mom invites this brother to say the prayer before we eat because, of course, she does. And as part of his prayer, he said, "Jehovah, please forgive me for what I'm about to do this evening." Well, after he said amen, my mom asks him, "What exactly are you planning to do? And why might Jehovah need to forgive you for it?" And then that conversation abruptly left the dinner table, and I didn't ever get to hear what the actual plan was. But I did hear Mom telling him exactly where to put said plan, so I imagine his proposal was more of the spousal swapping that was so very popular at the time.
What happens if you drop these on brick floors?
Probably nothing. They're made out of plastic. You can't hurt them. See, look. Let me see. Plastic. Plastic, you can play with them. I love you.
Harrison, they're not made of glass. They're made of plastic.
Anyway, I really don't blame my mother for showing him the door. Another distant relative of mine, who was a widow, apparently started an affair with one of the congregation's only black brothers, who incidentally already had a wife and children. I can't remember all of the scandalous details of that. I just know it was really a scandal. And apparently that affair ended, I think, in divorce for the brother, of course. And a few years later, this same relative, whose face I picture anytime I hear the word homewrecker, began an affair with another married brother in the congregation while his wife was dying of cancer. They were not particularly discreet about it, and it caused pretty considerable outrage in the congregation. I'm pretty sure they got disfellowship. They were eventually reinstated, but they got married shortly after his first wife's death, and they are still married to this day. Which I guess is good. I guess. There was another couple who actually moved into our congregation after a scandalous one of these wife-swapping situations where two couples basically switched spouses, got disfellowship, divorced, remarried to said swapped spouse, and moved to new congregations to live down the scandal and get reinstated. Fun times. That happened a lot in the 80s. Might still happen now. I don't really know. There was another brother actually in that same congregation where I was born and spent my early childhood who actually faked his own death. So he was really into boats, and he had a boat and he took it out in the ocean and staged a wreck, and it washed up on the shore and whatever. And he had his wife or accomplice, I can't remember, but it was a lady, file for life and property insurance. But needless to say, they got caught, and it was really the talk of the town for quite a while. And when I was researching this, I remember this guy's name, and I Googled him, and it looks like he went to Canada and tried it again. If it's the same guy. It would be what are the odds that somebody with the same name tries the same scam? I don't know. Anyway, then there was a regular pioneer who was a son of another of my mom's close friends who took out a loan from my mom, and then he never paid it back. And my mom ended up suing him in small claims court after numerous letters, lots of tears, conferences with the elders, threatening to have him removed as a pioneer, and pretty much shaming him relentlessly, which he should have paid back. He really should have. I'm not sure why he never paid her back, but he never did. So she went ahead and sued when the elders told her that it was a conscience matter and they would not technically disfellowship her for it. Then she got mortally offended and upset that he didn't invite her to his wedding. So strange. Okay, Other scandals. My best friend's mom, when I was growing up, when I was a teenager, had a 15-year-long affair with another brother in the congregation who was, wait for it, there's a theme here, her lifelong best friend's husband. Why did they do this? Why? And as if that wasn't bad enough, these two decided that the best time to come clean about their affair was at the guy's oldest daughter's wedding. I kid you not. This was a hugely expensive outdoor wedding, beautifully done, and it should have been a lovely experience for all involved. But no. Strangely, in that situation, there were no disfellowshippings. There was, I think, a reproval. But the wife who had been cheated upon subsequently left the truth, as did her former husband. There was one teenage couple who were younger than me in our hall who got reproved for having anal sex. And for some reason, they thought that it was okay to do as long as there was no touching of the vagina. That poor girl. Oh, God. I still to this day feel so sorry for her. What else? I told you in a previous video about myself getting counseled for spending 5 minutes alone in the house with a brother twice my age because we were trying to make coffee. Actually, I got counseled for a lot of stupid things. And then my own scandalous disfellowshipping story is out here in YouTube land too, in my first video. Apparently, in case you missed it, I am a demonized witch and fornicator as well as an apostate. Whatever. Then there were the crazy people. There's a lot of crazy people in the congregations too, and it can be scary. Actually, it's scarier than the adulterers, to be honest. There were a mother and daughter in our hall when I was a little bit older who both claimed to be of the anointed, because of course they did. And the mother in this duo absolutely had to be the center of attention at all times. So when her mom died, she caused such a scene at the funeral that she had to be taken to the hospital. And this was after she had insisted that several brothers not go to the funeral and be stationed as security guards at the family's houses, which were close to each other, during the funeral because they thought that their apostate brother might break in and steal things while they were gone. As if he wouldn't be at the funeral too? Oh, wait. I bet they told him he couldn't go. I don't remember. Bunch of jerks. Anyway, she also apparently pulled this same freaking out and being taken away in an ambulance bit at several relatives' weddings, too, from what I hear. Real fun person to be around. Now, her daughter was alluded to in another video I've done. She was the one with schizophrenia who served as a regular pioneer, despite her strange and somewhat terrifying behavior. She sang her own lyrics to the Kingdom songs at the hall, and you could actually hear this clearly if you were unfortunate enough to be sitting near her. Her poor son had to forcibly keep her seated during the book study at another family's house. And I mean, he was probably 7 or 8 because otherwise she would hole up in their bathroom praying and no one else could go pee. Her husband served as the reader, so he would read the paragraphs out loud. And so he couldn't, stop her. So it was up to the son to stop her, which is really kind of sad. My mom used to get so mad because whenever we would go to the meetings for service, we always got stuck with this lady in our car group. So on one memorable occasion, this lady, as soon as she got in our car, immediately started talking about needing a bathroom to go pray in. And so my mom just turned the car around from the territory and drove her straight to her parents' house. Told her to get out. There's a bathroom in there. Her family was furious with my mother for doing this, but Mom told the elders that she was not going to be responsible for this crazy lady anymore, and that if she was put in our car group again, we would just go home. So this lady also covered up all the pictures in her house with paper. She taped over the pictures. It was weird. She wouldn't allow anyone to come in who had anything heart-shaped on. Nothing shaped like a heart, ever. For some reason. She wouldn't let her son watch TV except for Jehovah's Witness videos, which back then was like purple triangles and there was one other one. I don't remember what it was, but yeah, it wasn't like Caleb and Sophia back then. Once, actually, there was a gathering for young people in our congregation at the skating rink, and this lady brought in the Kingdom Melodies cassettes and made them play Kingdom Melodies at the skating rink. It was awful. And then there was a time that her husband got just a little too close to me. Now, in the spectrum of abuse, it was very minor, just a little groping, but I was 14 and it was really gross. So I told my mom, mom told the elders, and then this guy called me in tears, and it was really bad, and I felt very bad. I felt responsible, like crap, but that was normal for me at the time. So anyway, there was a lot of mental illness on display in the various congregations I went to. Actually, it was kind of scary. Oh, back in the day at my original congregation where I was born, there was a lady, she was in our book study group, who actually stabbed her husband to death one day and ended up institutionalized. So that happened in the congregation that I was in when I was very small. And the other crazy ladies were in the congregation that I was in as a teenager. So you can see why the latter crazy ladies freak me out so much. I mean, seriously, guys, reading watchtowers and preaching doesn't actually treat mental illness. So you've also heard about the elder on my judicial committee whose daughter gave birth within a few weeks of my disfellowshipping. Actually, when I think about it, I'm amazed at how many people in that congregation were doing worse things than I ever did and who were lying about it. But I was the only one disfellowshipped. I mean, there was one brother in that congregation who was so gay that he sparkled. He did. He flat out flamed everywhere he went. And he actually started dating this one sister. And I'm pretty sure that they did it purposely just to get people off his back. I mean, there was definitely nothing amorous going on between them. I mean, it was like, no. But yeah, he was a flamer for sure. I wonder whatever happened to him. Oh, and I almost forgot. My mother's one and only boyfriend. So she dated this jackwagon for about 6 months, and then he completely ghosted her. I mean, completely. He avoided her at meetings. He stopped taking her calls. He stopped bringing his laundry over. Yeah, ew. Cold turkey, no explanation. So my mom, being my mom, tried everything. She went to the elders about it. Nothing. Now, this was all happening at the same time that she was trying desperately to force me to still be a Jehovah's Witness. So she arranged this pioneering trip where the need was greater for the summer in rural Kentucky. It was horrible because I had mono. We were staying in an RV with no air conditioning. It was 100+ degrees outside, and we were carrying books door to door all summer long. Now, when it came time for us to go back home from this trip, for some reason, my mom called this brother and he agreed to come and drive the RV home because apparently my mother could not drive it and the brother who drove it up there was not available for some reason. So I'm not really sure how this came about, but my mom was just all in a tizzy about seeing him again. And you know, she had hope because he was coming to help her. Well, it was bad. When he showed up, he had his new wife with him. Yeah, I said wife. From Russia. Skinny, blonde, everything my mother was not. And of course this trip was their honeymoon. Of course it was. And he brazenly asked my mother if they could stay in the RV. So he slept with his new wife in my mom's bed. And then he wrecked the side of the RV on the way home. It was so bad. So bad. My mom was, distraught. And she told me now she'd gotten to go on someone else's honeymoon. Not once, but twice. Sucked. And I'm sure that there are plenty more scandalous stories that I'll remember later and wish I'd put in this video. But I ask you, is this normal? I mean, really? I don't think so. Because these are just the ones that I personally know about that happened in my congregation to people I knew. And I've also heard of others. Whole bodies of elders removed for one reason or another. A body of elders in California who apparently sued the Watchtower Society over who owned their Kingdom Hall. Yay them. And more affairs and sex-related scandals than you could shake a stick at. What do you think? Are the witnesses more scandalous than the rest of society despite their claims to the contrary? Let me know what you think in the comments.